Hey everyone, Kathy the Vegan Prepper here, and today is just a super fast kind of cooking video to show you a method, not a recipe, but a method for how I turn pretty much any leftovers that we have as far as like greens and beans into patties. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Vegan prepper, vegan prepper. All right, so basically I have some leftovers of chana dal I made yesterday and a little bit of rice. And I'm going to turn these into patties because it's not really quite enough for everyone, but we're also kind of going on an impromptu little road trip. And I want something that's going to be really portable. I have a little bit of time before the boys get home from where they are, but I have the textured vegetable protein in my jar here. I just refilled it and I wanted to show you guys exactly what it is. So I get the organic textured vegetable protein. It is a soy product. Typically my secret for patties has been crumbled up tempeh, usually combined with some kind of flax. And so that also works really well. And then this stuff works really well as well. For me personally, I don't think that bean patties ever turn out tasting like anything but mashed beans. You kind of have to put something in them like a textured vegetable protein or like the tempeh to sort of break up that texture. And I don't think even really rice does that job, but the rice helps serve as a great binder. And so anyway, I will go ahead and get all of this stuff into a bowl. But I will note this is 1 cup of textured vegetable protein, which I soak in just slightly less than a cup of water. It's about 7/8 of a cup of water. And I learned that from this cookbook, which I can show you guys in just a second. But I'm gonna go ahead and get these all into the bowl and then show you kind of where we go from there. Okay, so this is turning out a little, it's like a little too wet. And so if you see this texture, that's not gonna form a patty. So basically, I probably should only have soaked about half of the TVP. So I am going to, this is the point at which, like if I was using crumbled tempeh, I'd be adding flax. And flax is still a great addition. But for now, I'm gonna just take some more dry TVP and mix it in. You could also do breadcrumbs. If you're not as concerned about the gluten, but this will start to sort of soak up a little extra of the liquid and then make it something drier that you can form into patties. But I may still end up adding some flax. So basically you just have to figure out what dry binder ingredient you want to use in order to make something that's going to actually form into a patty when you go to make it. I did end up adding some flax in because this is really, you know, an Indian flavored thing. I'm just going to be adding in some extra garam masala, which is pretty much my favorite Indian spice. You can tell from how low that one is compared to the others. I'm going to just add in some more garam masala, and then that will be hopefully enough to really spice it up. And I will form these into patties and get them onto a baking sheet. Okay, so I don't think I mentioned, I did end up adding some ground flax. And so basically after it has sat for a little while, it will come together and not really stick to my hands. And this is what I am looking for. Like the ability to kind of form it without it sticking, but it is still nice and moist. And so like you can form it into a shape. And basically, like I said, this is not a recipe because it ends up being different every time depending on how wet the beans were, how much of your leftovers you have. So it isn't always the same amount, but basically you're just sort of adding either your TVP or your tempeh and then enough flax, or like I said, like enough dried TVP is like what I ended up doing to help sort of bring it together. Or like I said, you could use breadcrumbs like they do in traditional meatballs. if you're totally fine with putting gluten in. I tend to personally avoid gluten unless it's sourdough, just because for me it seems to cause digestive upset and other issues. So I don't really use it. So anyway, yeah, I guess that's basically it. And I'm going to go ahead, like I said before, I'm going to get these formed into patties and get them on a parchment lined baking sheet. I do have some silicone baking sheets, but I personally find that the parchment allows them to brown so much better. And especially when you're dealing with patties like this, you want nice browned exterior, and that ends up making it a lot better. So I'm using parchment instead of the Silpat. I'm just gonna grab, I don't know, that's like a quarter cup or a third cup or what. I just sort of make a reasonably sized patty to me, kind of palm size, I guess. And then that goes on the sheet. And hopefully it will turn out good. They don't always turn out good. Okay, here are all of the patties ready to go into the oven, but I do definitely still have some left over. And so basically I'll bake them at about 400 degrees for about 20 minutes usually. And so one thing I did do was I sprinkled just a little salt over the top of these while they're still wet for that kind of salty taste payoff. Dr. McDougall talks about that you don't put the salt like in the food, because you end up making yourself, you end up eating way more sodium that way. But because these are for, my family, and they are not as low on their salt intake as I try to be, I'm just sprinkling a little bit on top to sort of give that salty payoff, like where it will touch your tongue, without mixing a ton into the actual food itself. And it really does work very well. But I'm mentioning that I'm doing it now while they're still wet, because I am cooking these oil-free, so we're not going to have like an oily residue that salt can stick to. So if you want to add a little bit of salt, you kind of need to do it while stuff is still wet, because it's not going to stick once it's all crispy and dry. Okay, I went ahead and put in a second small tray. So those are going to cook, and because I've added extra, and I also I opened the oven door again to add those, I didn't start the timer until after I added the second tray. And I'm also going to be cooking them for more like 25 minutes instead of just 20, just because there's so much extra in there. And also with the opening of the oven, I find honestly that it's kind of difficult to burn this kind of stuff. And so yeah, 400, 20, 25 minutes. And then I'm going to be looking at them and obviously showing you guys. But like I said, I'm sort of walking you through my method and kind of the way that I'm thinking about it, because I don't have a recipe. This is just sort of what I do every time. And it's, like I said, it's different every time. So I'm just going to kind of look at them. And if I think they need a little bit more time, like if they don't look dry enough or whatever, then I'll probably flip them over and then stick them back into the oven for another 10 or 15 minutes. Sometimes they need it, sometimes they don't. And I think it just sort of depends on how wet the mix is in the beginning. This mix ended up being pretty wet. But like I showed you, as long as it's not sticking to my hand, I feel like, okay, that's forming pretty well. And I go with that, because also if you get the mix too dry, the patties will tend to crumble apart and not hold together. So it seems almost like it needs some, to be a bit wet in the beginning. And so you're kind of working on trying to balance between making it way too dry and crumbly so that you are just coughing and needing a drink of water with every single bite because it's so dry, and making it so wet that it never fully, it might cook in the middle, but it's mushy and sticky in the middle. So you're always kind of warring between those two extremes. And so for me personally, I find I have the most success when I'm dealing with a patty mix that is still pretty wet. And then if I need to, I'll just cook it longer. But really the trick really is adding in the crumbled tempeh or something like the TVP to give it that texture that isn't just like bean and grain mush. So anyway, we will see how these turn out. Okay, so these are out of the oven, and I feel like they're a little soft in the middle. Now the thing is, they are going to firm up as they sit and cool. They are still a bit folly aparty. Honestly, they are never not like 100% folly aparty or not folly aparty. I should figure out a better way of expressing that, but anyway, I think I will go ahead though and put them back in the oven for just like maybe 5 more minutes. And then I think we're gonna call it good. Okay, the ones on the other tray I believe turned out better. I would say these are pretty much perfect, and it's because I made these thinner than the others. So you sort of, you don't wanna make them too thick. So these are thinner and they're holding together much better with little pieces coming off here and there. But I think that these turned out better just because I made them a little thinner. And then the other ones are not quite as cooked because they're too thick. But anyway, regardless, I'm gonna still put everything back into the oven. And yeah, it's just important not to make them overly thick. So something like that, you know, maybe a 1/2 inch at most is probably your best bet. Okay, so here they are all finished out of the oven. This one actually broke while I was flipping it. I would say these are pretty much perfect. Oh, funny. That one broke just like as I was filming. But I just sort of put it right back in the oven, and now it's partially fused back together, which is funny. So, yeah, it's okay. But anyway, this is going to be the one that I go ahead and test and eat. All right, let's see what we got here. It's good. I think it's really good. The texture turned out really good. So that's kind of what it looks like on the inside. And it isn't just like pure bean mush. It's got a nice chew to it. And so, yeah, I'm gonna call those a success. They might still be just a little wet in the middle, but as they cool, they're gonna firm up a lot more. And then these dipped in some ketchup, it's gonna be quite delicious. So anyway, I guess that's it. So that is basically how I do it, how I turn some of my leftovers into patties, and hopefully that was helpful to you at all. If you have any more questions or comments or tips of your own to share, please share those down in the comments below. And anyway, I guess that's all. And as always, I hope the rest of your day is good and your life stays wonderful. Thank you so much for watching. See you guys next time. Bye. Okay, these are insanely good. They actually turned out really good, but now I've just smeared a little ketchup on mine. I'm gonna see what Mr. Vegan Prepper thinks.
Hold on.
Okay. Hi.
It reminds me of something.
Something super yummy. Sorry, I'm back here crunching. They probably can hear me. My mouth is full. I'm just so in love with these. They turned out so good.
Yeah, it's really good. It's almost like a hash brown, actually.
Oh, really?
A little crispy outside edge.
With the little crispy rice. And
yeah, it doesn't taste like a hash brown.
the whole thing is just a beautiful experience. So I'm very happy with the way these turned out.
Yeah, I think some ketchup or barbecue sauce will do the trick.
Okay. Thank you for being in the video.
No problem.
In case anyone was wondering, this is the ketchup I typically use. I have usually gotten it at Costco. But yeah, anyway, I like it. And Adam is getting some barbecue sauce for his next one. So yay, so these are gonna be perfect on our little road trip. And I am actually saying goodbye now. See y'all later. Bye.